Marek Thorne sat alone in his small cabin, trying to enjoy the only quiet hour he had earned after a long shift. The Resolute Dawn was a massive deep space vessel. But for engineers like him, space was still small, crowded, and always full of noise. His cabin was barely wider than the bed inside it. Pipes ran through the walls, humming gently, and the air held the faint smell of metal and old coolant. Most crew members hated this smell. Marek had stopped noticing it years ago. He leaned back on his chair, rubbing his eyes. He had spent the entire day fighting a stubborn ventilation unit that refused to cooperate with the ship's AI. The AI claimed everything was within standard tolerance. Marek claimed the AI was lying. As usual, the only thing that fixed it was human stubbornness, and a metal rod applied with gentle but firm persuasion. He let out a slow breath and took a sip of warm tea. He liked this moment, quiet, calm, predictable. That peace lasted exactly 4 seconds. The cabin door exploded open with a sound like metal being punched by a comet. Marek jumped to his feet so fast he spilled his tea. His heart slammed against his ribs as he stared at the figure staggering inside. Lieutenant Arya Kalos, decorated alien officer, elite soldier, and normally composed leader, stumbled through his doorway like a storm barely holding itself together. Her armor, usually smooth and shining with a soft blue glow, was cracked open in several places. Shattered plating sparked, and flickering shield emitters buzzed weakly against her skin. The smell of burning circuits filled the room. She took one step forward and dropped to one knee. Marek stood frozen. He had seen her many times on the ship, always looking powerful, calm, and almost untouchable. But now, she looked like someone who had been fighting a war alone. "Lieutenant," he began. She lifted her head. Her eyes, bright silver and normally focused, were wide with fear and pain. "Marek Thorne," she said through shallow breaths. "You must listen. The reactor, the breach, has started." He blinked, confused. The reactor? That's not possible. We would have received an alert." "You haven't," she interrupted sharply, "because someone has blocked the alert channels. Someone has sabotaged the ship." His stomach dropped. Sabotage. The word hit harder than anything else she could have said. Arya tried to stand again but stumbled, catching herself against the wall. Marek rushed forward and grabbed her by the arms to steady her. Her armor was hot, too hot. He felt the heat burning through the protective gloves he wore. "We don't have long," she said, voice trembling. "I tried to reach the command deck, but defense systems were redirected against me. Door locks were overridden. This is bigger than we thought. We need you." "Me?" he asked, startled. "Why me? I'm just an engineer." "You're the only person who understands the underdeck structure well enough to get inside the reactor housing without triggering the failsafes," she said. "Human engineers crawled through every part of this ship during construction. The rest of us, we depend on schematics and systems." She winced as another spark burst from her chest plate. "You do not." "No." Marek felt his hands tighten around her arms. He knew the ship better than most. He also knew how dangerous the reactor was, even on a good day. A breach was no joke. Even the phrase, reactor breach, meant hours of work, dozens of safety measures, and entire teams working together. But sabotage meant one thing. Someone wanted the ship destroyed. "How bad is it?" he asked quietly. Arya's lips tightened. "If we don't stop it within the hour, the ship will tear itself apart from the inside." Marek's heartbeat thudded in his ears. Thousands of people lived on the Resolute Dawn. Humans, aliens, officers, technicians, scientists, all trusting the ship to protect them. He looked at Arya properly now. Blue-white liquid, her species equivalent of blood, had soaked through the cracks in her armor. Her breathing was shallow. She shouldn't even be standing. "You need a medic," he said. You shouldn't be walking anywhere like this. They can treat me later, Arya said firmly. Right now, we save the ship. She tried to take a step forward on her own, but her legs shook, and she grabbed his shoulder to keep from falling. Marek put an arm around her to support her weight. She was heavier than she looked. Her species had denser bone structure, but he didn't let go. You pushed yourself too far, he muttered. I would push myself farther if I had to, she replied. We are out of time. Marek hesitated for only a moment before his training and instinct took over. He reached under his bed and pulled out the emergency toolkit he kept prepared at all times. It was old dented metal, scratched surface, and covered in stickers from his academy days, but it held everything he trusted more than the ship's fancy gadgets. Arya watched him with both urgency and relief. Your tools, she said softly. Good. We will likely need them. My armor systems are failing. Another spark erupted from her forearm plate. He knelt in front of her and began examining the broken armor. Hold still. I can at least stop this thing from cooking you alive. You can repair Tauren-class armor? She asked, surprised. Not repair, he corrected, but I can stop it from exploding. Her eyes widened, and Marek gave her a small, grim smile. Exploding? She echoed. It's not supposed to, he added. But damaged energy armor tends to behave like a drunk battery pack. Unpredictable, angry, and slightly vengeful. Arya stared at him in disbelief. Humans, she thought, always have a strange joke ready even at the edge of disaster. Marek worked quickly. He cut open a loose panel and used a coil clamp to stabilize the exposed power node. Sparks flickered, then faded. Arya let out a shaky breath. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, he said, rising to his feet. We still have a ship to save. She nodded, pushing herself upright again. As they stepped into the corridor, Marek felt the floor tremble under his boots. It was small, barely noticeable, but he felt it all the way to his spine. The reactor was already destabilizing. We need to get to the underdeck, he said. The command deck is closer, Arya countered. Yes. Marek agreed. But the command deck won't help. The sabotage is deeper than their systems. We have to go manually, through the maintenance crawlways. Arya frowned. Those tunnels are not mapped. They twist and intersect in ways no one can easily navigate. That's the point, Marek said. Saboteurs won't expect anyone to go that way. Arya hesitated, then nodded. Lead the way. They moved quickly, passing flickering lights and malfunctioning doors. Marek's mind raced with possibilities, calculations, fears, and memories of every training session about reactor breaches. But something else drove him harder than fear. People depended on him, not because he was the strongest or smartest, but because he was human. And humans refused to stand still when the world threatened to fall apart. They reached the first maintenance hatch. Marek knelt down, entered a manual code, and forced it open. Hot air blasted out, carrying the unmistakable scent of overheating systems. Arya grimaced. This heat. The breach is closer than I thought. Marek swallowed hard. Then we don't waste a second. They climbed inside. Behind them, the corridor lights dimmed again. Somewhere deep in the ship, machinery groaned like metal under terrible pressure. The race had begun, and they were already behind. The maintenance tunnel was narrow, cramped, and filled with heat that made every breath feel heavy. Marek moved first, pulling himself through the metal corridor on his hands and knees. The walls were so close that his shoulders brushed them with every shift of his body. Behind him, Arya followed slowly. Her armor scraped along the tunnel, sending sparks dancing behind them. If this tunnel gets any tighter, Marek said quietly, we might have to start greasing the walls. Arya made a soft sound, something between pain and an attempt at humor, but she kept crawling. The air was warm and tasted of metal. The heat grew stronger as they moved deeper. Merrick knew what that meant. The reactor chamber was close. Closer than safety allowed. Any questions? End of 1. They reached a junction where 3 tunnels met. Merrick paused and wiped the sweat from his face with the back of his glove. He pointed his flashlight into each tunnel, watching the shadows stretch out into darkness. Arya studied him. "Do you know the path?" "I do," he said. "But it's not exactly safe." She tilted her head. "Is anything safe right now?" Merrick gave a tired laugh. "Fair point." He pointed to the left tunnel. "That one leads through the shield conduit. But it's flooded with radiation. Not enough to kill us instantly, but enough to make our bones complain." She frowned. "Right tunnel goes past the plasma pipes," he said. Arya looked at him. "Those options are terrible." Merrick shrugged. "Welcome to engineering." Merrick shrugged. "Welcome." Then he tapped the middle tunnel. "This one. Barely anyone uses it. It was built during construction and never got updated in the schematics. But it takes us straight to the reactor's lower access point." Arya nodded. "Then, that is our path." They crawled forward again, moving deeper into the ship's hidden underbelly. The tunnel grew darker as they advanced. The overhead lighting flickered, then died completely, leaving only Merrick's flashlight to cut through the blackness. Arya's breathing grew uneven. Her armor, damaged and unstable, made soft clicking sounds with every movement. Merrick glanced back. "You doing all right?" "I will manage," she replied, though her voice held a shake. "The armor is failing faster than expected. Just hold on a little longer," he said. "We're almost through the tight part." Suddenly, the tunnel floor vibrated beneath them. A loud groan echoed through the metal walls. Merrick froze. He knew that sound. Reactor stress. "That wasn't good," he muttered. Arya touched the tunnel wall and closed her eyes. "The energy levels are rising too quickly." Merrick's face tightened. Then whoever sabotaged the reactor wanted it to fail fast. They crawled faster now, urgency pushing them. After several minutes, the tunnel opened up into a slightly wider chamber, still cramped, but at least big enough for them to stand crouched. Merrick stood slowly and stretched his sore limbs. Arya tried to stand too, but her leg armor buckled. She grabbed the wall with a sharp gasp. "Whoa." Merrick rushed to her side and held her steady. "Hey. Easy. Don't force it." "My armor is locking," she said. "A defensive reaction. It is trying to preserve my body temperature by restricting movement. A different from working. I wonking the Muncies time. I wonking the sever time." "That's a terrible design feature," Merrick said. "It is usually helpful," she replied with a weak smile. He knelt and inspected her leg armor. The plating had melted slightly at the joint, fused in place. "I can fix this," he said. "Not perfectly, but enough to help you walk." "We do not have time." "We make time," Merrick said firmly. "If you can't move, we both die." Arya stared at him for a long moment, then nodded. Merrick pulled a small cutter from his toolkit and began shaving away the melted edges of the armor. Each spark made Arya flinch, but she held still, trusting him completely. "Does it hurt?" he asked quietly. "Yes," she admitted. "But keep going." He worked carefully, shaping the metal until the joint loosened. He pushed gently, testing its movement. "There," he said. "Try bending it." Arya lifted her leg slowly. The armor resisted at first, then moved with a rough grinding sound, but it moved. "Good," Merrick said. "Not perfect, but better than being stuck. You have saved me twice already," Arya said softly. He shrugged. "Let's just call it teamwork." They continued deeper until the tunnel ended. A round hatch sat before them, painted with yellow warning stripes. Merrick pressed his hand against it. It was hot. Too hot. "The reactor's right on the other side," he said. Arya straightened. "Then we proceed." Marek pulled out his toolkit again and opened the manual release. With a heavy creak, the hatch slid open, and a wave of burning air rushed out. Both of them shielded their faces. The room beyond glowed red. Pipes hissed steam. Panels flickered with warning symbols, and the entire chamber trembled like a beast in pain. Arya stepped forward cautiously. "This is worse than I expected." Marek swallowed hard. "Yeah. This isn't just sabotage. This is destruction by design." They climbed down the narrow ladder into the reactor lower deck. Every step sent a jolt of fear through Marek's chest. He had worked in dangerous spaces before, but this was different. This was a place that should never look like this. They reached the bottom, where a thick coil of cables connected to the main reactor housing. A flash of sparks erupted from the machinery, lighting the room in a bright flare. Arya raised her arm to shield her eyes. "The destabilizer must be inside the secondary conduit, which means someone crawled in here before us," Marek said. "Someone who knew what they were doing." Arya scanned the room. "We must be careful. The saboteur may have left traps." "Arya," Marek nodded. "Wouldn't be surprised." He knelt by a panel and tried to open it. It didn't budge. Arya stepped beside him. "Is it jammed?" "No," he said, tapping the corner. "Someone welded it shut." "Why weld it?" she asked. "To stop anyone from reaching the conduit, to slow us down." Arya's silver eyes hardened. "Then they planned for us to fail." Marek pulled out a compact tool, a small cutting torch. He pressed the tip against the welded seam and began slicing through the metal. Sparks showered across the floor. The air smelled of burning steel. Arya kept watch, her injured armor humming weakly. She scanned the shadows of the chamber, her senses alert for anything out of place. "Marek," she said suddenly, voice low. "Movement." He froze. "Where?" "There." She pointed at a dark corner behind a tall coolant pipe. Marek squinted. He couldn't see anything. 18, but he trusted her instincts. Arya reached for a loose metal bar lying on the ground. "If something comes out," she whispered. He swallowed but nodded. A faint click echoed through the room. Then, another. Marek recognized that sound, the mechanical twitch of a drone waking up. A moment later, a small defense drone rolled out from the shadows, its lenses glowing red, its mechanical arms unfolding like a spider preparing to strike. Arya stepped in front of Marek. "Marek," she said calmly. "What?" "That thing is armed. I can handle it. Hurry." Marek hesitated only a second before turning back to the panel. He continued cutting through the welded seam as Arya stood between him and the drone. The drone lunged. Arya swung the metal bar hard, blocking the drone's attack and knocking it sideways. The force of the hit sent pain shooting through her damaged armor, but she didn't stop. The drone whirred, recalibrating, and leapt again. Arya dodged left, barely avoiding the sharp edge of its limb, then slammed the bar down with all her strength. The blow cracked the drone's lens, and sparks burst out. But the drone wasn't done. It charged again. Arya braced herself. Behind her, Marek cut the last inch of the weld. "Got it," he shouted. The panel door flew open with a loud clang. Inside, in the center of a nest of tangled wires, sat a small device glowing with a sickening red light. The destabilizer. Arya hit the drone one final time, sending it crashing into the wall. It fell limp, sparks fading. She turned to Marek. "Is that it?" Marek stared at the device, his face pale. "Yes," he said, "but getting it out is going to be the hard part." Marek stared at the destabilizer with a sinking feeling in his stomach. The device was small, no bigger than his hand, but it glowed with a bright red core that pulsed like a heartbeat. A chain of wires fed into it, attached to the reactor's secondary conduit. Whoever had installed it knew exactly where to place it. Arya stepped beside him, breathing hard. Her armor dimmed and flickered with every movement. "Can you remove it?" Marek shook his head slowly. "Not safely. The wiring pattern is wrong, or maybe too perfect. If I pull the wrong connector, the whole thing might blow early. Whoever built this wanted it to be impossible to disarm." Arya leaned closer, scanning the device. "It is advanced technology. Not from our ship. Not from my people, either." "Yeah," Marek said. "It's foreign tech, and very expensive. Someone went all in to destroy this vessel." The reactor chamber rumbled again. A deep vibration shook the floor, and hot air blasted from the pipes overhead. Every sound made Marek's nerves jump. Arya steadied herself against the wall. "We must act fast." "What do you need?" Marek sighed. "Time. And a miracle." Arya nodded. "I can give you time. You create the miracle." He wished he could laugh, but his heart was beating too fast. Marek pulled tools from his kit and set them beside the open panel. He wiped sweat from his forehead. The heat in the chamber was rising. He could feel it through his suit. He began examining the circuit lines, tracing them with careful fingers. Suddenly, a soft click echoed from somewhere behind them. Arya's head snapped up instantly. Marek froze. They both listened. Another click. Then a faint mechanical whir. Arya whispered, "That sound. That is not from the reactor." Marek's pulse quickened. "Is it another drone?" Arya didn't answer. She moved silently toward the shadows on the right side of the chamber. She was wounded, her armor damaged, her strength limited, but she moved with precision, like a predator stalking danger. She peered behind a coolant pipe. Her eyes widened. "Marek," she said sharply. Marek turned. "Why? What?" Before he could finish, a figure stepped out from the shadows. A humanoid shape in dark infiltration armor. The armor was sleek, matte black, and designed to blend with the low light. The helmet had a reflective visor that showed no face. Only a distorted reflection of the glowing reactor behind them. The intruder moved silently, confident and calm. Arya took a defensive stance despite her injuries. Marek felt his throat go dry. The saboteur tilted their head slightly, studying them with cold, unreadable attention. Then, in a voice made artificial by a mask filter, they said, "Step away from the conduit." Arya answered immediately, "You will not succeed." The saboteur raised a compact weapon, not a gun, but something like a directional shock device. "You think you can stop what has already begun?" the figure said. Arya stepped in front of Marek. "You will not harm him." The saboteur didn't hesitate. They lunged. Arya blocked the first strike, her damaged armor sparking as metal clashed against metal. The force of the hit drove her back several steps. Marek stumbled away from the fight, heart racing, grabbing the nearest tool for defense, a heavy wrench. The saboteur attacked again, swift and precise. Arya parried, but her armor was too damaged to fully deflect the blows. Each impact sent tremors through her body. The intruder moved with trained skill, clearly prepared for close combat. Marek could only watch helplessly for a few seconds until Arya was struck across the chest and fell to one knee. "No!" Marek shouted. Without thinking, he ran forward. The saboteur turned just in time to see Marek swing the wrench with both hands. The heavy metal tool smashed into the saboteur's arm. The attacker stumbled back, surprised that a simple engineer dared to intervene. Arya used the moment to rise again, gripping the metal bar she had fought the drone with earlier. "Marek," she said. But Marek shook his head. "No. You're injured. You need help." "No." The saboteur adjusted their stance, weapon humming with power. "Both of you will die if you keep resisting." Arya stepped forward. "We will not allow you to destroy this ship." The fight erupted again. This time, Marek fought beside her. The saboteur swung at Arya, but Marek struck their leg with the wrench. The attacker staggered, clearly not expecting resistance from a human engineer. Arya used the opening to strike the saboteur's chest, with a powerful hit. The intruder crashed into the wall but recovered quickly. They were skilled, too skilled, and Marek knew they couldn't win in a long fight. The saboteur kicked Marek's wrench away, sending him sliding across the floor. As Marek scrambled for balance, the intruder stepped toward him. "Marek!" Arya shouted and leaped forward. She slammed into the saboteur, pushing both of them away from the reactor. They struggled, exchanging blows, each hit echoing through the chamber. The saboteur struck Arya hard across the helmet, cracking it open further. She fell, dazed. The intruder raised their shock weapon, aiming for her. Marek didn't think he acted. He grabbed his toolkit, lifted the heaviest device inside a portable fusion clamp and hurled it with all his strength. It hit the saboteur's back with a loud crash. The intruder stumbled forward, weapon firing into the floor instead of Arya. Sparks exploded everywhere. Arya used the moment, grabbed the metal bar again, and struck the saboteur across the helmet. The visor shattered, revealing glimpses of a face, but not enough to identify them. The saboteur roared, more in anger than pain, and swung wildly. Arya dodged, barely, then delivered a final, powerful blow to the attacker's knee. The joint snapped. The saboteur collapsed to the ground, weapon dropping from their hand. Breathing heavily, Arya stood over them. "It is over." But the saboteur only laughed weakly. "You think you've won?" the intruder said. "The reactor cannot be saved." Marek stepped closer. "Why? Why destroy the ship?" "You will understand when it is too late," the attacker whispered. Arya reached forward to remove the intruder's mask completely, but the saboteur pressed something hidden on their armor. A small click. A faint beep. Marek's eyes widened. "Arya, get back!" Arya pushed Marek aside as the saboteur's suit flashed red. The intruder's armor shut down not in a normal way, but with the finality of a failsafe. In seconds, the saboteur's body went completely still. Arya checked for signs of life and shook her head. Their suit. It shut down their vital systems. Marek stared in horror. A suicide lock. They were ready for capture. But there was no time to think. The reactor groaned louder than ever. The red glow of the destabilizer pulsed faster and brighter. Arya turned to Marek. "We must remove that device now." Marek nodded, adrenaline surging through him. "Then let's finish this." He returned to the open panel, hands shaking but determined. The saboteur was gone. But their trap was still ticking. And the ship's time was almost up. The reactor chamber shook with a deep, angry rumble that vibrated through Marek's boots. The red glow from the destabilizer pulsed faster now, like a countdown Marek could almost feel in his bones. He wiped sweat from his brow and knelt beside the open panel again. Tools scattered around him. Arya stood guard near him. Though she could barely keep her balance, her armor flickered with unstable light. Every now and then, a spark leaped from a crack in her chest plate. She leaned on the metal bar for support, but her eyes were sharp and focused. "Marek," she said, her voice trembling with exhaustion. "You must hurry." "I know," he replied, hands already working inside the tangled mess of wires. "But if I rush, I could trigger this thing myself, and then we'll both be vaporized before I say a bad word." She almost smiled at his humor. Even in this impossible situation, Marek pulled a bundle of wires aside and frowned. "This setup, it's too clever. None of the lines follow normal logic. Everything is crossed on purpose." Arya watched him closely. "Can you understand it?" "Understand?" Marek snorted. "Not exactly. But I can guess what the saboteur wanted." "And what is that?" "For any engineer to get confused and make a wrong move." The reactor's hum grew louder, almost like a warning growl. "And how do you win against that?" Arya asked. Marek lifted his head slightly. "By being more stubborn than the machine." She nodded slowly. "A very human answer." He gave a quick grin, then returned to the device. The wires twisted inside like a nest. 2 red cables. 1 silver. 4 black. Usually easy to read. But here, they crisscrossed so perfectly that it looked like someone had intentionally tied them into a puzzle. Merrick took a slow breath. All right. Let's think. Saboteurs aren't artists. They're practical. If they wanted this to blow, then some wire in here is the real trigger. He tapped a thin, glowing thread barely thicker than a hair. The moment his tool touched the thread, the destabilizer glowed brighter, fast and sudden, like a flare. No, no, no. Marek quickly pulled his hand back. Arya stepped forward. What happened? This thing is reacting to electrical contact, Marek said. If I touch the wrong wire with any power tool, it speeds up the meltdown. Can you work without tools? Arya asked. Marek blinked. Without tools? That's insane. Is it impossible? She asked. Marek looked down at his hands. Grease stained his gloves. His fingers trembled from the heat. He had always been a tool guy. Wrenches, cutters, clamps. Those were his comfort zone. Working with bare hands inside a live reactor conduit? Impossible isn't the problem, he murmured. The problem is losing fingers. Arya lowered herself beside him, breathing hard. I have seen humans do extraordinary things when pushed. He met her gaze. In that moment, something steadied inside him. All right, he said. But if I lose a hand, I'm blaming you. Arya gave a tired smile. I will accept the blame. I will. Marek slipped off his gloves. The heat stung immediately, but he ignored it. He reached into the conduit slowly, like handling a wild animal ready to bite. His fingers brushed the wires gently. One wrong shake, and the destabilizer pulsed again. He held his breath. Easy, he whispered to himself. Gentle. Slow. Arya watched every movement. The reactor growled again, louder this time. A vent above them burst open, releasing a wave of scorching air. Arya shielded Marek with her damaged arm, taking the blast head-on. Sparks rained over her armor as she gritted her teeth. Arya, Marek shouted. You don't have to. Yes, she said firmly, voice shaking. I do. He turned back to the device. He found the main stabilizing wire. A thin, silver strand running under several black wires. This looks like the heart of the whole thing, Marek said. If I disconnect it cleanly, the whole device shuts down. And if you disconnect it wrong? Arya asked. Then it doesn't shut down, Marek said. It explodes. Arya did not blink. Then do it right. He nodded. His fingers pinched the wire carefully. It felt like holding a live snake. Sweat ran down his forehead and into his eyes. He blinked it away. 1, 2. The reactor chamber shook violently before he reached 3. Both Marek and Arya grabbed the panel to stay balanced. The destabilizer's red glow flared so bright it lit the entire chamber. Arya looked up at the reactor core above them. The containment field is weakening. Marek cursed under his breath. We're out of time. He gripped the silver wire and pulled sharply. The destabilizer flickered, glowed, sputtered. Then the red light suddenly dimmed and went out. Arya gasped. You stopped it? Marek exhaled shakily. No, I just disconnected the trigger. The device is still inside the chamber. Arya's relief faded. Then, we are not safe. Nope, Marek said. He reached deeper into the panel, searching for the anchor bolts holding the device in place. The metal burned his fingertips, but he forced himself to keep going. Then he felt something right at the back. A second component. A hidden socket. He froze. Oh no, he whispered. Arya leaned closer. What is it? It's a double trigger design, Marek said. Even if the main destabilizer dies, This second one keeps the reactor unstable. Arya closed her eyes for a moment. So the saboteur planned for failure. Yeah, Marek said. And they planned well. He studied the second trigger. It was buried deep inside the conduit, unreachable by fingers. I can't reach this by hand, he said. Arya straightened painfully. Then use a tool. Marek hesitated. If I use a tool, the thing reacts to electricity. One spark, and it detonates. Arya looked at the panel, then at him. What if, she said slowly, we cut power to the entire conduit? Marek blinked. You mean, black out the whole reactor housing? It will give you 10 seconds, she said. Maybe less. Marek considered it the risk, the consequences, the chance of the ship losing all power during the process. But he also thought about the thousands of lives above them, and the fact that humans did their best work when everything was on fire. Do it, he said. Arya moved to a side console. The screen flickered weakly. She stabbed her fingers into the manual circuit lock. Her armor sparked again, but she didn't stop. Marek, she said, when the lights go out, work fast. When do they go out? He asked. Now. The chamber went completely black. The sound of the reactor fell silent. Marek couldn't see anything, but he could feel the wires. He reached blindly, found the second trigger, gripped it, and pulled. For a terrifying second, nothing happened. Then, the lights flickered back on. The reactor hummed to life again. Arya collapsed to one knee, breathing hard. Is it over? Marek held up the detached device. It's over. The destabilizer lay dead in his hand. At least, it looked dead. Arya gave a weak but relieved smile. You did it. Marek leaned back against the wall, exhausted. We did it. Together. But before they could celebrate, a new alarm echoed through the chamber. A different alarm. One Marek had only heard once in training. His face turned pale. Arya immediately sensed the change. Marek, what is that? He looked up, terrified. That, he whispered. Arya stared at him. But we disabled the device. Yeah, Marek said quietly. But the sabotage damaged the core too much. It's still overheating. Arya's voice dropped. How long do we have? Marek checked the reactor's readout. His heart froze. Minutes, he said. Maybe less. The destabilizer was gone. But the reactor was dying, and they had almost no time left to save the ship. Silence slowly settled over the Resolute Dawn, the kind of silence that comes only after a ship survives something it was never meant to survive. For a long moment, the great vessel drifted in emergency safe mode. Its lights dim, its engines quiet, and its corridors strangely calm. It looked like a wounded giant catching its breath. Inside, crew members moved carefully through the passageways, checking damage and helping one another. Everyone knew the ship had stood at the edge of destruction and somehow pulled back. Marek Thorne woke to a soft beeping sound. It was steady, calm, and annoying enough to tell him he was in the medbay. The room smelled faintly of disinfectant and warm air recyclers. His head felt heavy, and his arms ached. When he opened his eyes, the ceiling above him looked too clean to be from the maintenance deck. He tried to sit up, but a nurse nearby rushed over and gently pushed him back. Easy, she said with a small smile. Your body is still recovering from radiation, stress, and exhaustion. Marek blinked. The ship? Did it hold? The nurse laughed lightly, as if the answer was obvious. It held because of you. Before he could respond, the door slid open. Lieutenant Arya Kalos entered, wearing a fresh uniform instead of damaged battle armor. Most of her wounds were healed, but faint lines along her arms showed where her armor had broken earlier. Her eyes looked brighter now, steady and full of purpose. Marek Thorne, she said in a warm but formal voice, you are finally awake. He raised an eyebrow. You make it sound like I've been asleep for days. You were out for only 9 hours, she replied. But considering you almost got cooked alive in a reactor chamber, this is impressive. Marek chuckled weakly. Yeah, well, humans are stubborn. Arya stepped closer, her expression softening. Stubborn? That is too small a word for what you did. Your decision to stay inside the reactor's manual interface, it was beyond logic, beyond safety, but you still did it. He shrugged slightly. I wasn't going to let the ship blow up. People rely on me to fix things. That's my job. No, Arya said firmly. You did not save a machine. You saved thousands of lives. There was a long pause as Marek tried to process her words. He remembered the alarms, the rising heat, the unstable glow of the destabilizer. He remembered Arya pulling at him, telling him to leave. But he had stayed. He had fought the machine, the error codes, and the failing systems until the ship finally calmed beneath his hands. Arya continued, Command already knows everything. I gave them my full report. Marek groaned. Great. Paperwork. You misunderstand, she said. Your actions have spread across the entire fleet. Other ships already know your name. Many humans would celebrate this. You seem uncomfortable. He sighed. I don't need attention. I just wanted the reactor working again. Sighed. I want other. And way. I want other. I want other. My tur. And way. And you did, Arya said with a small smile. You did more than any of us expected. The nurse returned, checking Marek's vitals. After a moment, she nodded to Arya. He's stable now. You may talk, but please do not stress him. I will be gentle, Arya replied with a faint hint of humor. When the nurse left, Arya placed a small datapad on the table beside the bed. Marek frowned. What's that? It is a commendation, she said, and an invitation. Invitation? To what? A special task force, Arya explained. The Allied fleet is forming a joint unit for high-risk operations. Missions where ships face sabotage, unpredictable dangers, and unstable technology. They want people who think differently. People who improvise. People who do what others consider impossible. Marek blinked. You're saying they want me? Arya nodded. Yes, because you were the only one on this ship who would crawl into a burning reactor with only a set of tools and pure determination. Marek looked down at his hands. They still trembled slightly. I don't know if I'm hero material. Arya's voice softened. That is why you are perfect for the task force. Heroes who think they are heroes often forget the danger to others. You never forgot. Even in the worst moment. He let out a long breath. I need time to think. Of course, Arya said. The offer is open. For now, rest. She turned to leave, but Marek spoke again. Wait, what about you? Are you joining this special task force? Arya paused, facing the door. There is a high chance I will, but I will only decide after I know if you are considering it. Marek frowned. Why? She turned back toward him, and for the first time, Marek saw something gentle and sincere in her expression. Because, she said quietly, a team needs people who trust each other, and I have never trusted anyone in a crisis the way I trusted you. Marek looked away, embarrassed under her steady gaze. I just did what had to be done. Yes, she said softly. You did. And that is why the galaxy needs you. Later that day, the ship slowly returned to normal operations. Lights brightened, engines hummed back to life, and the hull repair drones sealed damaged plates. Crew members whispered about the events in the reactor chamber, about how a quiet engineer had saved them all. Marek heard some of the whispers drifting into the medbay. It made him uncomfortable, but also proud. A few hours later, Captain Rose himself visited. He was a tall, stern man who rarely showed emotion, but now he looked at Marek with something like deep respect. "Thorn," the captain said, "if every officer on this ship showed even half your courage, the fleet would never fear any threat." Marek swallowed. "Rest well," the captain added. "The resolute Dawn owes you its life." When the captain left, Marek laughed quietly. He wasn't used to praise. He fixed pipes, tightened bolts, repaired burnt wires. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't a hero. But maybe the line between an engineer and a hero wasn't as large as he once believed. Maybe anyone who stepped forward at the right moment could be one. The next morning, Marek was approved to walk around again. His legs felt weak but steady enough. He moved through the corridors slowly, noticing how many people nodded or saluted him. Even officers from other divisions recognized him now. In the observation lounge, he saw Arya standing alone, looking out at the stars. She turned as he approached. "You look stronger," she said. "Still tired," he replied, "but better." A comfortable silence passed between them before Marek spoke again. "I thought about what you said, about the task force." Arya's eyes brightened slightly. "And?" Marek took a breath. The stars outside seemed close, as if listening. "I think I'll join," he said. "If the galaxy really needs someone like me, then I'll try." Arya smiled, not the formal smile she gave to other officers, but a warm, genuine one. "In that case," she said, "I will join too." "You sure?" he asked. "Yes," she said simply. "Because a good team is not made by skills alone. It is made by trust. And I trust you, Marek Thorn." Marek felt a strange warmth in his chest. "Then, I guess we're partners now." Arya nodded. "Partners, and soon, teammates." They both turned back to the view of the stars. The ship still glowed faintly with repair lights, but it moved forward with renewed strength, as if proud of the people inside it. The resolute Dawn had survived the storm. And now, with Marek and Arya preparing for a new chapter, it would move toward a future full of challenges, but also full of hope. For Marek, this was only the beginning. For humanity, it was another chapter in its long, unstoppable rise. And for the galaxy, it was a reminder that humans, in their stubborn and brilliant way, could change fate with nothing more than courage, quick thinking, and a refusal to give up.